Hello and welcome to Access Asia here on France 24. I'm Will Hildebrand. Coming up, an elderly Japanese man in the fight for his life. A former boxer who's lived on death row for half a century. We'll take a closer look at the life of Iwao Hakamada. A land unfit for life, yet tens of thousands live on India's largest coalfield. Now they're in a standoff with the government. And the beauty of Vietnam's Halong Bay draws millions of tourists every year, and with them comes pollution. Officials now struggling to clean up one of Asia's most beautiful natural wonders. 82-year-old Iwao Hakamada lived for half a century on death row before being released. But the former professional boxer is still locked in a legal back and forth. Today, he is free, but his life far from certain, as a possibility of a retrial looms large.
This man spent half a century in prison on death row. His story begins in 1966. The ex-professional boxer is charged with murdering his boss, his wife, and 2 teenage children. Condemned to death, he's given a new lease of life in 2014, after being freed by a judge who ordered a retrial, a rare occurrence in Japan. Reports say there was a lack of DNA evidence and allegations of police misconduct.
If you think you may lose, most likely you will get knocked down. You must overcome such weak mentality. You have to think to yourself, you will win.
But the nightmare isn't over for the 82-year-old, whose mental health deteriorated after decades in jail. A court has overturned the initial decision for a retrial, meaning Hakamada could end up behind bars and face the gallows again. His family and supporters, however, are adamant he is innocent.
Anywhere in Japan, if there are people who wish to know about what he has gone through, I will be there as long as time allows.
Japan is the only major industrialized democracy other than the US to have capital punishment. And while the practice has its critics, the death penalty is supported by most Japanese. For Hakamada, the next round of his bout is filled with uncertainty. He takes long walks every afternoon as the courts deliberate his fate.
As India's economy continues to grow, sometimes it does so at the cost of those feeding the furnace. Tens of thousands of people live in the country's largest coalfields, a site that has been abandoned and where coal spontaneously bursts into flames. Rather than step in and address the health hazards, the government is playing a waiting game, hoping residents will leave so it can recover the land for more mining. Clement Bonnereau has more.
A scene straight out of the apocalypse. Crevices spewing out flames and toxic gases as far as the eye can see. No vegetation, not a single drop of water. This is hell on earth. In the midst of it all, a group of women in sandals. They're looking for coal, scraping the ground for a living just a few hundred meters from the mine.
I come here every day at 4 a.m. and I work until 11 a.m. without eating. If I manage to fill a basket, I can then sell it for around 30 or 40 cents, just enough to get me through the day.
The Jharia coal fields are among the largest in India. Here, in abandoned mines that weren't decommissioned properly, coal is left to spontaneously combust. Some of these underground fires have been burning for over a century. More than 40,000 people live and work here, including women and children. Among them is 25-year-old Anju Devi, who was born and raised here. She lives in this house with her mother, sister, and 3 children. But they won't be able to stay here much longer.
The earth is so hot that we can't even sleep here. We have to stay outside. The fire is all around us, but we don't want to leave. Many people have fallen into crevices and never came back. It's so deep. When you fall, you sink deeper into the ground, and you never come back.
The land belongs to local residents, but the government wants to recover it to extract more coal. As a result, nothing is being done to stop the flames. Ashok Agarwal founded an NGO 20 years ago to help defend the rights of his fellow inhabitants. Hundreds have already fled. How many people live with you?
8 people.
And your village has been evacuated?
Yes. What else can we do?
Everyone else has left?
Yes.
The entire progress depends upon coal. We have got no other source of energy. Coal is a prime source of energy. So we need more and more coal, despite the amount of carbon dioxide that you're going to spew into the atmosphere. Right now, we are not thinking of polluting we are thinking of how to survive. So we need coal. But if you need so much coal, what is going to happen? What is going to happen to the people living here? It is going to be at the expense of these people.
The activist has brought the case to the attention of India's Supreme Court, but so far without success. The country simply cannot do without coal. As India's economy continues to grow, miners dig deeper and deeper into the ground, no matter the cost.
For many single women in China, marriage can be a dream. It can also be a source of profound stress. The unwed are often called leftover women. Being single has marked these women and changed the way their families and their colleagues interact with them. Julia Kim has the story.
The port of Shanghai is the ideal backdrop for that perfect wedding photo. But scenes like this are a source of anxiety for those still searching for their happily ever after. In China, stigma surrounds single women in their late 20s and 30s. There's even a name for them, Shengnu, which literally translates to leftover women. Nowhere is the societal pressure to tie the knots more blatant than here in Shanghai's impromptu marriage market. Every weekend in this park, desperate parents exchange their children's CVs in the hope of finding a perfect match for their busy single offspring.
I have to look for her. She doesn't have the time, she works too much.
2 years ago, 34-year-old Guo Yingguan secretly filmed her interactions with prospective parents. Her video was viewed over 14 million times on social media.
I went with a sign, and on it I'd written where I was from, that I'd studied in England, and that I was open-minded with a good sense of humor.
But she didn't mention her age. She was 32 at the time.
How old are you? I was born in 1983.
Oh, you're really brave.
Guo felt humiliated and dehumanized. Being single is also a glaring flaw in the eyes of Chinese employers. Twice a year, this group of educated young professional women meet up to air some of their workplace grievances.
The recruiters always end the interview by asking when I'll get married, why I'm single, and whether it's by choice.
Voluntary or not, the Shengnu represent a new breed of nonconformists in China. Educated, well-traveled and financially independent women who don't believe their worth is defined by their age.
In Vietnam, pollution caused by mass tourism has transformed one of Asia's most beloved natural wonders into a sea of trash. Halong Bay attracts more than 3 million people per year, but more visitors inevitably means more waste. Aaron Ogunki has more.
Thousands of limestone pillars and islets sculpted by the wind and sea speckle emerald waters. This is Vietnam's Halong Bay, one of the world's most beautiful, but now a victim of its own success. At the port filled with thousands of tourists from all over the world, many say their trip is not what they had expected.
It's a highway on water. We're all traveling the same boats that aren't very beautiful and emit a lot of pollution. It's a bit like Disneyland. We're all waiting in line for the same thing.
Tuan Chau Port is the largest artificial tourist harbor in Asia and a major departure point for tourists visiting Halong Bay. In just 3 years, the number of daily visitors has doubled to 15,000, most of them from China. Water shuttle operators say it's increasingly difficult to manage soaring tourism.
We don't even have enough boats for all these tourists because the numbers are constantly increasing. And during high season, we can't keep up with the demand.
With more tourists comes more waste. 2 nights aboard means a few meals a day per person, transforming a natural wonder into a commercial enterprise. This is what the boats leave behind in their wake, seemingly endless trails of waste. Vietnamese authorities are trying to stem the flow of pollution by hiring cleaners. But the task is gargantuan. Each day of work, a mere drop in the bucket. Only 30 cleaning boats like this one circulate the bay per year.
Working here and constantly seeing more trash is discouraging. Seeing so much trash makes me sick. On days where there is less waste, I feel better. And when there's a lot of it, I work as hard as I can so that my employer is happy.
Though the authorities allowed the less than flattering images to be filmed, none of them were willing to speak about the sensitive topic on camera. These local representatives said they are doing everything in their power to reduce pollution, a claim that has failed to produce noticeable results. Officials have thus far ruled out imposing quotas on the flow of tourists, citing economic concerns. Halong Bay is indeed one of the most visited tourist spots in Vietnam, and now also an illustration of the dark side of mass tourism.
Now, with peace talks yet to lead to any significant changes, North Korea remains isolated and its economy battered by UN sanctions. So the country is relying more and more on tourism as it looks to woo foreign travelers. Typical anti-American themes were absent at the country's mass games, the first event of its kind in 5 years. Officials say the stadium can hold 150,000 people, and in attendance himself was leader Kim Jong-un. Thanks for watching this week. We'll leave you with these images. Please stay tuned to France 24.